It'll be 3 years at the end of this month. So it's my, as some people call it, my ampuversary. I can't use that phrase, I'm sorry. My ampuversary, yes. But people do that, they post it online, their ampuversary. So yeah, it's been 3 years since I had my amputation, and but I've been in my HiFi Interface for just over a year. It's nearly a year and a half now. And the story behind the HiFi Interface was me actually seeing a fellow amputee on Facebook using the same system. And the thing that blew me away was her range of motion. And with my previous socket, this was it. This was about as high as I could get above my head. Now I can get my arm right behind my head. So there's a lot more range of motion. And that was critical for me, because the previous socket, to me, was useless. And in fact, it ended up in a cupboard, which is the story of many amputees, where the socket doesn't work. And so as a result, you just put it in a cupboard. When you don the socket, you need to ensure that all the skin is pulled down into the socket, so it's firmly in place. Now, just by simply putting the socket on by itself, you'll find that the skin will stay above the socket, and you won't get, the electrodes won't be touching the correct muscle group. So that's why we use one of these pull-through stockings to ensure that the skin is pulled right into the socket, and it's relatively simple, very easy. My previous socket, I get pain around my elbow, and I'd also find that within the socket itself, my residual limb, I'd get pain because it was flopping around inside. Well, number one, my residual limb isn't moving in here at all, and secondly, there is no irritation around my elbow. As you notice here, there's a huge open area as well, so there's no discomfort at all. So it really is just like an extension of my existing limb. And I know now when I use my hand with the new titanium fingers and that I lift something heavy, I'm not going to have any issues, because this is firmly around my residual limb. So when I had my first socket, somebody would say to me, "Where's the restroom?" And I'd say, "Over there," and my hand would go over there. So now I'm so confident, I don't even think about this. It's now part of me. So when I move my residual limb, my interface moves with me. So I have no fear of it coming off. Obviously, we live in Southern California, so one of the big concerns I had when I had my first socket was it would get very hot, very, hate to use the term, but very sweaty, which would then cause the socket to not fit correctly. It would affect the electrodes. It wasn't a happy picture. But now, because I have my HiFi interface, obviously my arm can breathe, so I don't have issues with any sweating at all. People talk about the fact that is it not going to leave a permanent mark on your arm, and absolutely not. I mean, I removed my socket. Yeah, of course there's going to be a slight ring, but that's gone within 5–10 minutes. So the only thing I recognize is something visually. But sometimes I even feel I have my hand back. I mean, right now I feel like my hand is here. And that sounds bizarre, but I think a lot of it's because psychologically I have got a hand back, and so my mind is now tricked. I'm a vice president at a travel management company. We manage travel for large corporations. I don't even think about the fact that I'm an amputee. You know, there's no need to adapt what I do at work. I have a regular computer, I have a regular office. I can use a keyboard as anybody can. Might be a little slower because I can only use the one finger, but I do use a regular keyboard. So, you know, nobody in the office feels that they need to approach me differently. They treat me as they would any boss. So this is the ilimb Quantum, and the beauty of this hand is it now has what they call gesture control. So I have 4 pre-programmed positions that by simply moving my hand forwards, backwards, left or right, it goes into a pre-programmed position. So I'll show you now. If I go forwards, my hand goes into index point, and then if I want to get out of that, I'll show you now, go to the right. You'll notice now my pincer grip there, and then I have another position when I go backwards. It goes into what's known as handshake mode. So now my hand, if I'm doing a handshake, it automatically releases rather than me having to manually open the hand. So if I'm shaking your hand, it now opens by itself. The other beauty of it is it's tied in with the Apple Watch. So I have another 4 positions programmed into this watch. There's an app we have here. And then on the iPhone as well, you have more positions if you need them as well. And plus, of course, you can manually store the fingers. So if there's certain positions that you need to put the hand into, you can do it manually as well. I often get asked, what can you do with your hand? The best thing is really to say, what can't I do with my hand? Because it's a much shorter list. So I get up in the morning, I prepare breakfast for the kids, I then get myself ready, I pack my bag for work, I drive myself to work like anybody with 2 hands on the steering wheel. And then when I'm at work, I have a lot of meetings with clients, so I'm constantly shaking hands. Many people will actually come up to me and offer their left hand when they see my ilimb. And I always say, no, got to do the Bionic handshake. I treat my hand as my hand. So every recreational use, when I ride my bike, I use my hand. It's like when I'm cooking. I used to always use my right hand, so where I can, I will use my right hand as I always have done, as it was my dominant and still is my dominant side. It's interesting, I was offered a glove that would make my hand look like a regular hand, and my response was no, this is not a regular hand, and I want people to know that as well. And jokes aside, this has opened doors for me, excuse the pun, but it has opened doors for me in business where people see my hand, come over and talk to me, and there's one customer that I signed as a result of just him asking me about my hand, and then we started talking about business, and voila, they're now a customer. So I'm not ashamed of my hand, I'm very, very proud of my hand. And my whole goal is to help others get to that place where they feel confident just to go out and be proud to show their mettle. I didn't want to let it beat me, but I didn't know what the answer was, and fortunately I came across Biodesigns.